Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Squad Goals. I'm your boy, Sir, CEO 2020 Podcast, and I got my compatriots here, and I got a couple of guests today. And so I want to give a huge thank you to our two guests today, Ms. Adora Williams, who joined us. What up, girl? And we got author Lovely Banks in the building. Two poets in this bit. I'm going to snap it up for y'all. All right. So the topic today was actually a topic I stole from Miss Banks. From Miss Banks' Facebook page, Hyper-sexuality and how it relates to trauma. I really wanted to tackle this one. At first I didn't, I'm not gonna lie, because I knew this is kind of a transparent, intimate topic, but being the advocate for transparency and being open, I felt like this should be a topic that we should be able to break that curse of keeping in-house and just expressing it. So I know a couple of you have actually told me you felt that you haven't experienced this. So you were wondering if you needed to sit on the background for this. I felt absolutely not. I think any opportunity to educate each other and share an experience that could possibly save a life is worth it. That was hilarious, Malcolm. I did see you drop that chip. But we're going to go ahead and get started. So not to put you on the forefront, but I love to let our guests speak first. So Ms. Banks, would you love to kind of just share your thoughts on hypersexuality and what you think how it kind of relates to trauma?
So for me, I was raped at the age of 9. I'm very open and honest. Raped and molested by a family member. And that created a bunch of different things in me. First of all, I started having sexual thoughts that I didn't quite understand. My body started being opened up to things. I started feeling things that I didn't quite understand. It made me confused with my sexuality. And as I got older, those thoughts started to turn into almost like fulfilling a need. It messed with my relationships, where I would have, so even now, let me just break it down. Like even now, I still have urges to fulfill sexual needs that are tied to my childhood. I still sometimes feel like that little girl being introduced to sexual wants before understanding what sexual was. I personally feel like when trauma introduces you to things too soon, those things affect relationships. The yin yang. I don't even know how to have a decent relationship with a man. It always feels like it has to be a sexual relationship with a man, because that is my only tie to a man. It came so soon as like, okay, me as a child being introduced to sexual stuff too soon by a man in my family, and then growing up, I've never had a non-sexual relationship with a man because I was introduced to things so soon. And now me in my adult life, trying to combat that way of thinking and be like, okay, not every man is attracted to me. Not every man wants something sexual from me, but I find myself flirting and being sexual and thinking sexually and thinking a man wants something sexual from me, because that's how a man was introduced to me. So for me, hypersexuality does definitely affect my relationships, and it affects my relationships with men. Because I noticed today, I was watching my guy I just met. He's a kind of like a friend. I watched him interact with his daughters. And the things he did with his daughters, I thought was low key, like, oh my goodness, is this molestation? Is this sexual? Because I haven't quite figured out how to separate sexual actions from just a relationship between father and daughter. everything looks sexual to me. Everything looks more perverted to me. Because my thought process, my urges, my everything is involved around this is sex. Or a guy, because he smiles at me or he gives me a compliment, it's sexual. He wants something from me. And whether I give it or not is up to me. And do I want to give it? And then sometimes that can turn into me being promiscuous because it's almost like that's all I'm good for. So it affects everything, hypersexuality. It really does.
Whew, that was a hell of a mouthful. One thing about this platform, Ms. Banks, is we appreciate transparency. Like, we advocate it through and through. No matter how ugly or disturbing it may be, it's just the fact of being that open creates that lane of communication that, like we said earlier, can save a life. So I'm just want to take a moment and just tell you thank you for sharing that, because not a lot of people are that strong to admit it and to openly admit that, yes, this has affected my view to this day. So it makes me realize that this is an ongoing process. It isn't just something that you just conquer and, get over. It sounds like a day-to-day thing.
It definitely is. I would have, and I'm just going to be open and honest, because when I first had my first son, it wasn't as bad. The intrusive thoughts wasn't that bad. But with my second son, I did not understand why certain thoughts just started to come forward. Things that were in my subconscious. It's almost like I was a little child and I was attracted to people that were way younger than me. These are thoughts that were planted as a seed as me being a child. And I used to feel very like I'm a predator or something like that, because I had no control over my innocence. I had no control over that. And people think that something's wrong with you, you're weird, you're this and that, because you're having thoughts like the person that raped you and took your rights away. And that's why people need to know that this is a normal thing. And I'm saying that this is something normal for someone that has been raped and molested as a child, and you to grow up and fight those thoughts of doing the same thing that was done to you. That's something that's real. And a lot of people need to know that's not, that you're not weird, you're not crazy, you're not this and that. It's just something your body was introduced, your mental was introduced to before your mental was ready. And I get counseling for all of that. And my counselor had to tell me, hey, no, this is normal. People like R. Kelly went through stuff like that. He was, and if more people say, hey, these thoughts are normal, more people will get the help. Because we don't want to create more people that are raping, molesting children. We want to normalize, hey, this is normal for you to think that way. Hypersexual thoughts, they're actual people are out here going through those things. And if nobody ever knows that this is not something that you go through, then where's the gap going to be closed and people actually go get the help? We're creating more people that rape and molest people. Then we're creating a cycle. Then we're creating generational curses all over again. So people just need to know that that's normal. I had to break free of that and know that, hey, I'm not crazy. I'm not a molester. I'm not a rapist. It's just thoughts that I fight on a day-to-day basis. And if I didn't know that, hey, went to get counseling and said, hey, this is normal, then where would the generational cycle stop?
Why do you think people don't want to make it normal? Or say, or accept that it's normal?
Because they want us, I feel, this is my opinion, I feel like people like for it to not be normal. People like to put a label on somebody. I feel like it's all about labels. If we don't normalize it, like a lot of people are even afraid to admit that they actually go through this. You'll be surprised how many people have been raped and molested, how many people have these dark thoughts, and they rather keep it in the family, or they rather we strong, we black, we strong, we just keep living. But you're not really living to your potential because you're holding stuff back. You're causing your health to decline because you're holding on to all this stuff that could be talked about, could be discussed, could be navigated, could be ridden of your subconscious, but you choose to hold on to it because you want to seem like, I don't go through that. You weird. We always want to give somebody else a label. You're weird. Something's wrong with you. And then that creates a cycle of insecurity in that other person. Because I know for me, I was just like, why do I have to go through this? There are many nights I cried because I'm like, something's wrong with me. How could I have had these thoughts about my kids? How could I have these thoughts about people? It affected me. And this sort of hypersexuality affects your jobs. For people that work as teachers, because I used to work as a teacher, I found myself having thoughts about kids that were closer to my age. It's still wrong. I'm 25 and I was in middle school, high school, having thoughts. That's still, if you act on those thoughts, you're still a pedophile. You know, so you just have to realize you got to be comfortable within yourself. You can't be ashamed of what you go through, those thoughts and stuff like that. Like a lot of people can't take what I tell them. A lot of people can't take it. My husband, soon to be ex-husband, there was a lot of things he couldn't take. But I'm just open and honest because I feel like that released that control it had over my life. If I'm open and honest with you and don't care what you think about me, and if I'm even helping like one person to know that this is normal and just get the help, then that's fine with me. Because at the end of the day, I can't help what has happened to me, but I can help who I become.
Zadora, look like you had a statement.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things about, because I recently read an article about people who actually work with pedophiles, and this article was telling that the reason why I feel that people don't want to normalize it is because people think that if we normalize the thought process and the mental issues, we're going to normalize pedophilia, which I feel normalizing getting help for those urges and those thoughts is different than we're not going to say, okay, you're normal, we're going to provide you a child, or you're normal,
No.
we're going to see what you're going to do. People are stuck in a box. People don't realize, like Lovely was talking about, how is, you know how they say hurt people. It's all a generational thing where your mental, your psyche is your sexual psyche, your sexual desire is shaped and is formed. Nobody inherently thinks this way, and most people who were abuse other people. And I think that's where the biggest thing is, because I've told people I wanted to work with pedophiles and they're like, ugh. I'm like, no, people have to be able to get the help to understand. People need to stop sweeping stuff under the rug. We have to stop saying, okay, we're gonna just keep this particular uncle, keep him away from the children. No, we need to get rid of this uncle, get this person the help, versus trying to keep the child away or focus so much on what the child, especially like when they said, well, little girls, you should watch what you wear because men in the house, things of that nature. No, we need to figure out why this man is in the house if we feel that they're going to be a threat. We have to take the focus off what the child is doing, take the focus off what happened. We need to take the focus off, okay, this happens to this child. We need to stop trying to find out what the child did and focus on what that person did and what was in their psyche. And like Lovely said, normalize getting help. Because if we are not able, because I've seen this too many times where the mother and the husband is bothering the child, and the mother, because I used to work for a group home, the mother would put the daughter out the house to keep the husband instead of getting the daughter the help and getting. I've seen this with my own two eyes. I won't say where I worked at, but I saw this a lot. And I think that's what we need to normalize, getting the child help, as well as, instead of course they need to be in prison, but when they're in prison they need psychological help, or when they get out they're going to do it again.
I think it's kind of like, you know how when people are addicts, and beforehand people were just not not admitting it, or you know what I mean, because it's not treating it as a disease, but as kind of like that scarlet letter. And I think a lot of times, especially when it comes to anything sexual, I think sometimes, especially when it comes to mental health, it's only been a couple years, a couple decades that they have really started diagnosing like sexual mental diseases. You know what I mean? Where people are addicted to, sexual, like pornography and being sex addicts. So I think sometimes, I mean, as a culture and as a community, I think we just need to kind of get to a point where we address the disease and help the person. You know what I mean? Because right now, I think we get to a point where we chastise the action, but we don't understand the why behind it. So like we're working to fix the symptoms, but not really fix the disease, if that makes sense.